Welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome. Super excited to have everybody here. Again, I'm Dr. Emily, founder of the Joy of Coding Academy, and today we are going live for Tech Tuesdays at 2 o'clock Eastern Time with what programming language should you learn to get a dev job, right? What programming language should you learn to get that very first dev job and get that high-paying six-figure job? And so I'm super excited today to talk to you guys about, okay, you want to get that first dev job. What language should you be learning, right? Now, there's the basic languages, right? The most popular languages for people to get started on. So typically people get started with something like Python or Java, JavaScript. I've seen people get started on C. Awesome. But what should you learn if you want to get that very first dev job? So you don't have to guess. There is a way to find out what the most popular languages are, but I do want to separate, okay, what language do you learn for the job versus what language do you learn so you can master the fundamentals and get the basics down, right? So they don't have to be the same. And to be honest, I've seen people start in a less optimal language like JavaScript to learn full time. And I've seen them get stuck and struggle and give up. So we want to avoid that. We want to make our learning as easy as possible as we can. So what I recommend is if you're just getting started, start off in Python, post in the Facebook group. We have a free class to get you started. Like, just come on in, like, let's get you started, working on this. So please don't think that you have to learn the language for the job first, because there are languages that are easier to learn because they help you as a learner gradually step into complexity, right? So like, for example, if you were going to teach someone to read, like let's say it's like a first grader, would you hand them as their first reading material a college level calculus textbook? Probably not, right? Probably not. So you're not going to, if you've got a young kid, maybe here, I've got a young kid here, like you've got a kid this age, you're teaching them how to read. Hey, bud, how's it going? You're not going to hand them a college level calculus book, right? That's just not going to work. Okay, see you later. So so there's no reason in jumping all in on your coding language, right? And then you get stuck and frustrated, right? You get stuck and frustrated. And so we don't want to have that situation. We really want to focus on getting you those fundamentals, getting you those basics first. And I just want to reiterate that the language you start in does not have to be the language that you finish in, right? And just the same way as you wouldn't throw a new reader into a really advanced text, right? A textbook, right? Like, you give them something at their level, like Bob runs, look at the dog, throw the ball to the dog. Like, when you start to learn to read, when you're learning those fundamentals, you're in the basics. And so you might as well pick a language that's going to make that easy for you. And when I say start there, I mean a month or two. This doesn't have to be like years and years and years. Like, you can just master the basics in a couple weeks. Good, off and running. Now dive into your language because you're ready for that more advanced complexity. Okay. So once you're ready for that complexity, what should we do? What should we look at? So let me give you guys a quick link. Here we go. Awesome. I think we'll be able to share these links with you guys. So you don't have to guess. You can actually figure out what the most popular languages are. Now, this is what languages are popular, right? In terms of the projects that they're in and what people are looking for. If you're really looking for where the jobs are, you may need to use a different list, but this is what's most popular in the widest array of projects. So we've got right at the top, we've got Python, Java, JavaScript, right? So these are all like the very most popular, but there's like a ton. If you look, there's a lot of languages, right? But you don't want to learn them all. You don't. Like, no one can know everything, absolutely everything, single thing. So you want to focus on, when you're picking a language to learn, you could look at, okay, what are people hiring? And that's fine, but that's really letting the money drive you. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I've seen for me personally is that the most successful developers are passionate about what they do. So if you can find some kind of software that is employable, that also lights you up and you get really jazzed about it, really excited, that would totally be the way to go. So like, let's say you want to build front end or mobile or back end or full stack, right? Or data science, whatever software you want to create, that's the language you want to pick. So, and again, starting off in Python, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a hugely popular language. It's very employable. That's one of the reasons why I did pick it. I picked it because of its ease of accessibility, of picking it up and learning it fast for a beginning coder, and also because it's super employable with the least amount of knowledge. So if you can only pick one language to get started in and start applying for jobs, I would recommend Python for that. But let's say you have other interests. Well, here, let me go through these links. So for example, this link is here. I'm just going to pop it in the chat so you guys can see this while I'm going. And then we've also got this other index of the popularity of programming languages, so you guys can see this. So here we've got it's a little bit different. It's a different index. They're using different data, but we've got Python, C, C++, Java. These are like the top 4. So JavaScript is actually lower on this survey. So you'd have to like really go into the details of like where this data source is coming from, but there's different knowledge bases. Maybe this is surveying all code and not just what's popular lately. I'd have to go in and read this one out, but these are different indexes you can use to figure out. Oh, good. The definition of the index can be found here. So we can actually look that up, because JavaScript is actually pretty small, because I suspect this is taking into account legacy code bases, right? So C has been and continues to be a hugely popular language, and it's been around since the 70s. There are code bases written in C, and to be honest, older languages like Fortran and COBOL that have been around since the 70s. You might not see them every day or even realize that you're looking at them. But for example, the ATM network, right? When you go to a Mac machine, a cash machine, and you get money out, that code is written in either, I believe it's Fortran or COBOL. I don't remember which one, but it's a really old code base, like really, really old. So when they have an upgrade, guess what? They have to pull somebody out of retirement to even update that software, because it would be so expensive to rewrite it in a modern language. It's cheaper to pay somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars for a few hours worth of work, like no joke. So again, there's so many systems, the telephone switching system, like there's a ton of legacy software out there. So I'm assuming that that's what we're seeing here with the difference between these. And finally, we also have the Stack Overflow developer survey. Now this is actually surveying developers rather than, I believe that other one was system view. We can go in and check. But this is a developer survey with 90,000 developers responding in 2023 of the tools that they're using. And so if we want to look at what tools developers are using, we can scroll down. Let me check out. This is really, really useful. But this is all the languages and how popular they are. So JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Python, SQL. So most modern software developers that can be reached via email and pay attention to Stack Overflow, right? They are predominantly coding in JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Python, SQL. Just for point of reference, HTML and CSS are not typically considered programming languages, right? They don't have things like loops necessarily, although some versions can. But so JavaScript and Python are the top programming languages on this list. And then SQL is also a coding. So HTML and CSS are markup languages typically. SQL is a specific database language. So you might learn for a particular project, you might learn a bunch of different languages, right? So we got TypeScript, Bash, Shell, Java, C#, C++, C, PHP. So you can see like this is totally different. Like this looks absolutely different. So it's worth doing your due diligence to figure out what the source of your data is coming from before you start applying, like learning something to apply for jobs. And this is why like everyone is a unique individual. If you focus on like, look at a couple of these, like see what's bubbling up to the top and see what kind of software that gets created that appeals to you, right? That's the sweet spot where you're really going to enjoy your experience, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day how much you're getting paid if you're not happy with the work that you're doing. So you do want to just take a little bit, like, sure, you want to get paid, right? You don't want to start giving away your labor for free, right? You need to have your needs met, but there's a lot of developer jobs. There are jobs in all of these languages. Like if you zoom in on this list, I make sure you guys can see this. If you zoom in on this list, there are jobs in Python. There are jobs in Java, JavaScript, C, C++, C#, PHP, R. You just have to go after them. So really, what language should you learn? It's more about, well, what kind of software do you want to create, right? And then which languages fall into that flavor. Now, I do have some more specific recommendations for you for those that are interested. And again, if you guys have questions, please just post it in the chat, whether you're in the Zoom room or in live in the Facebook group, right? Like just post in the chat, happy to answer your questions. But I do have a couple couple, let me open this up for you guys. All right, I have a couple recommendations. So I surveyed some of our own senior software engineers inside the Joy of Coding Academy, cross-referenced my own experience. And so I don't want to just tell you what I'm seeing, but also what others are seeing in the industry. And so those indexes of the popular languages is a great place to start. And if you wanted, you could start looking for jobs in those spaces. So for example, most of those programming languages, you're going to be able to find coding jobs that are in the high fives, entry level 6-figure jobs. And most of those and again, what you're getting paid for can depend on the nature of the software you're creating. So for example, I've seen data science positions range from mid fives to mid sixes, right? 6-figure software developers, mid fives to mid sixes for entry level. Like, it's all over the place. There's other factors happening. It's not the language, right? There's other factors at work. There's other skill sets that we need to learn besides just the language. It's how do we build software at scale in a production environment on a team? Like, those are huge, huge learning milestones. And it doesn't matter what language you learn, you can still learn those skills alongside it. That's really what's starting to differentiate your salaries, in addition to how efficient you are. When you're a super efficient coder, that's what takes you from 6 figures to 7 figures, right? The 7-figure coder. Yeah, for sure. And so what kind of software you're building, whether it's data science, whether it's web, whether it's mobile, those are, web and mobile is where I see the highest paid job opportunities. But I think if you're in game development, I've seen that those salaries are a little bit lower because it's a little bit about supply and demand, and game development is super popular, and it tends to really promote an industry that has a lot of turnover because they don't need to really treat their workers well because there's so many people vying for these positions, right? It's kind of like how being an artist or musician, the nature of this work is so fun. People do it for free. Therefore, it lowers some of the compensation that comes in for anyone trying to be professional in that space. So same is true with game development. I did not see the salaries were nearly as high as some of these other programming languages like Python, Java, JavaScript, because, when there's a high business need, that's when you have that high payoff, those higher salaries. So just be aware of that. Like, the nature of the software you're building can actually cap the salary. So I'm specifically speaking to 6-figure salaries for web and mobile development. So let's say that's your target, right? Let's say that's your target. For what do you want to work on? So we've got front end, back end, and mobile. Typically, front end is what you're seeing on a web page, whereas back end would also be called full stack. Like, typically you're not just back end, you're usually full stack, where you understand the relationships between the technologies on both sides. So when you spin up a web application, when you're building software to run a website, the code is executing in two places. It's the same code base. It's executing both on the server and on the client machine that's viewing the web page, right? So the backend server can be written in one language. The client web page is most likely written in JavaScript, right? That is what it is. We got JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. That's what's executing on your laptop, on your computer, on your phone. And so, if you just want to do front end, then yes, you're going to want to do JavaScript, CSS, HTML. You're also going to want to have a framework or library because most people don't code their websites from scratch anymore. Like, that's just not what people do. So learning a framework like React, Next.js, or Angular, right? Like, those would be really, really popular. And having an understanding for all of these ecosystems, whether it's front end or full stack or back end, having an understanding of the technologies and how they interact. What's the order that things execute, right? And I say this, you may not have heard this before, but the order that things execute is what is going to allow you to debug effectively and efficiently. Like, one of the things we do inside the Joy of Coding Academy to make sure our students have the basics locked in is we make sure that they can predict what the output of a piece of code will be when it's run. And the reason is because we want to make sure we've got those fundamentals locked in place. And so the same is true on the website of things, is that if you don't understand the order that things happen, you're not going to be able to understand when something goes wrong, how to fix it. Like, oh, shoot, this is happening here. Well, what caused that to happen there? So you do need enough understanding of the technologies. You don't have to know everything that's happening in a system. That's usually impossible. These systems are way too big and complicated. But you need to have an understanding of what happens when, so that you can zoom in and figure out what's going wrong when it's not doing what you expect, right? So we want to have that understanding for sure, in addition to the languages and the frameworks. For backend, there's a lot more variety in languages. Front end is pretty standard. And to be honest, there's a lot more front end jobs out there that I see, but they're also lower paid, right? Because it requires less technical skill to get into that front end entry level job. And many of the front end jobs are in that lower end 40 to 60K range. You can absolutely get a front end job that's higher, but I'm just saying in terms of volume of the number of opportunities I see a lot more full stack and back end opportunities above 100K than in terms of front end. So front end a lot of times is like in the 50 to 70K range versus over six figures. You can do it, but there's going to be fewer of them. So you're going to have to really, showcase your talents, and you might, need to approach this in a different way. And so in terms of back end, like let's say you do want to make sure you're hitting that six figures on up, full stack, back end, totally, that's going to be the easiest. I know I had a student who was interviewing for positions in the Pacific Northwest, which is one of the highest paid areas for software developers. She had tech experience, but had never been a coder. So she had no coding experience, but she was interviewing for full stack positions that would pay as much as 175K entry level. She ended up landing one for 150. Pretty nice, right? Pretty nice. So totally doable, totally possible for a first-time job. So let's say you want to differentiate yourself for backend. So if you learned Python, there's that again, Python, man, it's like the one language, one-stop shop you can learn. You've got so many opportunities. With Python, though, if you're going backend, you'll want to go with Django or with Flask and have some kind of framework around it. Flask is lighter and easier to understand. Django is a heavy hitter. It's going to compensate you more, but it's an investment, right? It's an investment in terms of understanding. You might have to read a couple books on it, do a couple side projects to really understand it. Go is really popular, and Java, to be honest, the Spring Boot framework is really popular. I see a lot of job opportunities there. So Java is great. C# is a great language. Anything, with the .NET legacy framework, it's going to be really good. Python is probably the most beginner friendly. But again, it's used everywhere from backend to data science to embedded systems to scripting and DevOps. So like Python, it's the simplest to learn, and it just gives you all these options. So there's nothing wrong with learning a little Python. And the concepts that you learn translate to other languages, which is really, really cool. And then once you get into mobile, this is where there starts to become some differences. So with mobile, you can actually build web applications that will work well on mobile. So you only have to maintain one code base. This is great for a smaller team, but you might be hand tied a little bit on the functionality you deliver, and you might not have it have the same look and feel as a natively built iOS or Android app. So you might want to go native implementations for those. So there are some frameworks that will still allow you to create one mobile implementation and then export it to iOS and Android. So like React Native is a framework that allows you to do that. But for iOS, you might want to, if you want to be specifically an iOS developer, Java or Kotlin might be a great, that would be for Android, and then for iOS, Swift would be the way to go. But more and more companies are really working for cross-platform solutions that we outlined before, like React Native, Flutter, or Ionic is a little bit older one, maybe with Capacitor.js. I didn't love Ionic when we used it, and Flutter was hard to Google. So if you're teaching yourself, like that can be a consideration. To be honest, our shop uses React Native because we already had a React front end, so it was like a no-brainer to transfer over. We did have some more transferring because we'd gotten ready for Flutter, and then we chose to go a different direction anyways. So we've looked into all of these. So I can tell you with confidence, you can, and even Microsoft is getting into the cross-platform app game. So they've got a .NET MAUI. So again, there's tons of options, tons of opportunities there. And so you want to pick the kind of apps you want to develop. Like, do you want to specialize and just do iOS? Do you want to specialize and just do Android? Or do you want to do it all? Right? Because technically mobile is just another front end. So like, it really depends. Where do you want to specialize? What gets you excited? What kind of job opportunities are in your area? Is there a big local company that does a lot with websites or mobile? Awesome. Like, differentiate yourself that way. So you can actually pick the company you want to work for and research that technology and get something in that space. Even if it's not for that company, if that's your dream, we'll start there, start on that path. Maybe you have to stop over another job first before you make the leap to that dream company that you'd really like to have. But this way, at least you'll have that on your resume, and you'll be building up that experience and that learning. Awesome. Awesome. You can also look for recruiters in your area and see what languages they're looking for. So inside the Joy of Coding Academy, we have Miles Savage. He's a cloud engineer, and he's works locally in the New York area. And so he helps our students figure out, what he's seeing. He keeps his ear to the grindstone. He's has connections with about 300 different hiring managers all over the region. And so, yeah, that's absolutely a resource for you if you're able to have that. Excellent. Excellent. Awesome, guys. So good. So I've been neglecting my comments. So let me see if there's any questions in here. And yeah, try not, it's starting to rain a little bit. So my notes are cut short. We'll see if I can get an umbrella set up. All right, excellent. So we have some questions. So John was asking, what's the difference between the different languages? Like, what's the difference between Python and C++ as far as deciding what language should you choose? So John, it depends on how that language is typically used. So C++ is going to be used predominantly for desktop applications or something mainframe that's running on a server, or it's running behind the scenes. So like the place that I've heard of C and C++ working would be there's custom software shops that have like end user software. So like a custom software shop, like let's say you're building out restaurant systems to put in restaurant orders, right? Like that's like a custom point of service system that gets installed on site. So that might be like a C++ shop because they built it back in the 80s and that's still what they use today. I've seen it for like telephone switching applications. So network administration, I've seen C++. So again, if you're not sure what kind of software you want to create, think of the software companies you'd love to work for, because you can probably Google what their software stack is. Right? Like, and that can help give you some insight into the type of applications that might work there. Yeah, WebAssembly. Yeah, for sure. Great questions. Yes, I love these notes. I love Excel as a backend. Ooh, you could use Excel as a data store. I don't recommend it. Been down there. I would recommend Firebase over Google Sheets or Excel, because you get into, if you have multiple versions of software running, you get into some issues there. You'll get into issues there. So like in terms of concurrency. So when you have a live web application or mobile application, you're going to want multiple users logging in. And so that is going to kind of delay, distract things, like, because you're going to end up with conflicts in your data integrity. So that's going to be a problem. I'm still scrolling here. Let's see. Yeah, six figures sounds so bizarre when outside the US. Okay. Eric, yeah, so 100K is what we're looking for. Okay, excellent. Seems to me this environment today is reminiscent of large law firms in the 80s. Everyone wanted that money, but the joy was short-lived for them when they each realized they were a small, sweaty cog, mostly do brute things. Yes, so this is why, so burning out fast, like this is why we want to find the right fit, right? Like there are companies that literally, like EA Games back in the 2000s. I don't know if it's changed, right? I haven't seen this because I heard this, from someone who worked in the biz. Their average developer was with them for 9 months. That was the average, right? They literally ate developers for dinner. That's the gaming industry, right? Web developers and mobile developers can be really highly valued developers making hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's about finding the right fit culturally for what you're looking for and the type of software you want to create. Because like, imagine you had that six-figure job. Imagine you're making 100K. Like, what would you want now? Would you also want, like, put yourself there in that moment, like, oh, I've got 6K after taxes flowing into my bank account every single month. How do you feel? And what else do you want? Right? Like, so this is the first hurdle is, oh, I want that six-figure job. I want that high quality of life. But will you be satisfied with the type of software that you're creating? So, right. So we want to we don't want to be so pigeonholed that it's like must get job. What's the fastest path? Right. That's one option. But ultimately we want long-term success and we want to thrive. And so being a little bit more strategic and intentional about what kind of software you want to create. Right. And so it's to avoid the same thing that Manali is mentioning here. Awesome. Awesome, guys. You guys are awesome. Are there other questions? Because it is getting a little rainy. So I might have to cut our conversation short today. It's live, guys. It's not pre-recorded. Awesome sauce. You are rocking it. You are doing awesome. And if you do want to become a six-figure software developer, if you want to become one of these highly paid software developers that companies are literally competing to hire, and you'd like support along the way, reach out inside the Joy of Coding Academy. We will get you rocking and rolling and get you started. Right. And so we have 100% job placement rate. We've got a money back guarantee. Like, yeah, come and talk to us. We'll get you started. Awesome. Nivea, big vision is to combine front end with UX UI. Awesome. Awesome. Yes. Oh, great question, Nivea. Awesome. I have a connection I'll explore as well on UI UX. So if you want experience with UI UX, then when you hit the internship, please let us know again if that's the way you want to go, because we actually can put you in internship roles that will blend front end with the user experience as we add new projects. We do employ, so our current UI UX expert on staff his name is Bobe. He's amazing. Everybody inside the Joy of Coding Academy knows him. But he actually has a master's in interactive design. And so he just builds amazing user experiences. And so we start all of our new software projects with him. And so we can actually have you involved in that internship process for sure. So yeah, whatever, that's one of the super cool things about the Joy of Coding Academy is that you don't have to know exactly upfront exactly where you want to go. You can actually try it out, and you don't have to like take a 12-week course to figure it out. It's like you can literally try something for a week and see if you like it, and then switch if it's not for you until you find the best fit. So yeah, totally. You're in the right place, Nivea, for sure. Great question. Ooh, great question. So I would say, let's get you started. We can get you the internship experience. I'm working on a connection with a company that also teaches UI UX, so there might be some synergies there. So I'll keep you posted. I'll keep following up on that, and then yeah, just keep me posted on where you are so we can get you where you want to be. I love that. How do I feel AI will change the landscape? Awesome question, Herb. So AI is going to take away dev jobs at the low level, like the low code jobs where you only need the 7 basics. Those are going to go fastest. But to be honest, most companies require an individual that they can fire to be responsible for the change that they're making. So big companies, the 6-figure dev jobs aren't going away, right? And they're not going away fast. We're at least 20 years away from missing out on those. And so Herb, if you have I have a couple videos on our YouTube channel if you have any questions on that, where we talk about that. We even did a live with our senior most software engineer. He's got 30 years experience, Chad Woolley. He's amazing. So he works for GitLabs. He's worked for IBM, Pivotal Tracker. He's awesome. So we did a whole hour live earlier this spring. So happy to share that with you guys. Awesome. Yes, exactly. Thank you guys. What's the best stack between Node.js and PHP and Django? So that's a great question. And so, PHP is the most legacy of those languages. So there's not a lot of frameworks. If you're going to go PHP, I think it was like Symfony was the name of it. There is a framework for PHP that you can use, but I think Ionic might have been PHP actually. But I don't see that if you want to go legacy, there is demand for all coding languages. If you want to go legacy, I recommend PHP. If you want to really be in the mainstream now, Node.js and Django are going to be the best. Django proved to be not super user-friendly, but it has great documentation. So it does have a means of learning it. Node.js, we use it like out of the box. We don't do any customization with that. So I can't speak to that as much. But again, I would look for companies whose software really excites you and see what they're using and go after that, right? Like you can't go wrong with Python and Django. It's just a matter of how long do you want to spend learning it. I think Node.js might be faster to learn than Django, but I don't know for sure. You'd have to put it to the test. To be honest, you can do a month in each one and just kind of start to see which one you like better and then go after that. Like, do you really want to live in that language for a long term, right? That would be the question. Awesome. Great questions, guys. These are awesome. So John Smith is asking the question whether you should get an associate's or bachelor's degree in computer science when trying to obtain a job. Do jobs care about your degree, or do they only care about how much knowledge you have? Great question. So answer is, it depends. If you already have a degree in something, anything, doesn't have to be computer science, that is a huge win. And there's going to be certain companies that will only hire college grads, but they care about your tech skills, not what degree you have. Right. So the degree is not necessarily a good way to prepare for getting a coding job. But it is a great way in terms of showcasing your perseverance, right? That you have high executive function, that you can show up and be a good worker in a company, right? Like they're using it to test for different things, not for technical skills. So if you don't already have a degree, I think you're going to get more out of your time, more benefit out of your time, investing it and actually gaining experience. And so that's why inside the Joy of Coding Academy, we put students after a couple months of training, our emphasis is on the internship and actually living. How does a six-figure software developer work? Like how do they work on projects? How do you actually deliver software at scale? Like the basics, the fundamentals that you learn. And to be honest, there's no guarantee depending on the degree you get, what level of software engineering and coding knowledge you're going to have. So once you come through a degree program, if you're lucky, you'll probably have the basics. But that would take 2 to 4 years. To be honest, we can teach in about 3 weeks, like working 2 hours a day. Like it doesn't have to take that long, but that's what you should reliably get out of a degree program. So, okay, you've learned the basics. You know how to create a file or a function and edit it. Awesome. Well, when you're an actual six-figure software developer, that's not the end goal. The end goal is, gosh, how do I get that chunk of code live on the internet as part of a website that has a team of dozens of other developers working on it at the same time, while hundreds to thousands of users are using the live software? How the heck do you do that, right? And I don't see this taught commonly, A, in degree programs, or B, other boot camps typically. So inside the Joy of Coding Academy, we focus on, okay, how do you produce high quality software at scale, right? That's live. And we deal with all of these other issues so that when our students walk into an interview, they reveal just how much they know in a sentence. Like, oh yeah, I used Heroku's continuous integration. We use our CI/CD pipeline with Cypress end-to-end testing, right? Like you can just throw out all these buzzwords in the appropriate context in a single sentence. You can just showcase how much awesome knowledge you have. And so that's what we focus on, is giving you that confidence and the skills to just walk into a job and be able to onboard yourself and become effective and really knock it out of the park. And so a degree, so just full disclosure, I'm a retired college professor. I taught computer science for over 10 years in academia. I was the program director of computer science. I was tenured, like I did all the things. I had 50 peer-reviewed international publications. If you'd like to look me up, you can Google me. But like, I worked really hard to make sure my students understood programming from the computer science curriculum, but that is rare. Like I don't see that. I have had conversations with other professors of software engineering say how software engineering is a vocabulary class where they don't actually build any software, right? Well, this is why I'm not there anymore, because that didn't fly with me. Like if you're going to build software, freaking build software. Like if you want to learn how to build software, you have to build software. Like that is what it is. It's not about a vocabulary test that you can go and try and pass an interview. No, like when you know it, when you are that developer that the company is looking for, it's so easy to find you a job. I get companies calling me all the time about it. All right, so that's my recommendations. If you have a degree already, awesome. If you don't have a degree, don't worry about it. That's one of the things that we offer inside the Joy of Coding Academy, because I do have that academic background. We teach data structures and algorithms the same way I used to teach it in college. So you can still get that fundamental concepts, but you don't have to spend 4 years doing it, right? And spending hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially, because that's what my former students were paying for their degrees. Awesome, guys. Awesome. So great question. Let me see. So Leo, will internships in the program gear students towards their area of interest? Yes. So what we try to do is when you come in as an intern, we have a conversation and we try and get you on track. Usually I try and get a sense of what your dream is, what your goal is, like what kind of dev job would be a dream for you that you'd really enjoy. And then we try and align your internship experience for that. So like if you come in, you tell me Apple, well, we don't have any projects right now that have C. So the closest thing I could offer you is probably something in DevOps, right? But we're going to like make your internship experience, we're going to customize it to where you want to go. And I think, so AI, right? Like let's say you wanted to do AI, we might not have a project ready to go for a client, but we might be able to discuss a portfolio project that we can have, that you can work on to help differentiate that. So you'll want to get, no matter what, you'll get that team hands-on experience working for an actual software project for an actual client. You're going to get that actual experience part-time, virtual, working on a project with other people for a live software system. And think of the power of that when you go on the interview and you can just point to this live website and say, hey, I built that. Like most software developers don't have a portfolio because they can just point to their work and say, I worked on that, because the code is proprietary. The only software developers that require a portfolio are entry level. So if you just give yourself that experience and they have that internship, done. And I'm looking for a meaningful internship like we offer inside the Joy of Coding Academy. I can't promise that for other software companies, because to be honest, when I was an intern, I ate lunch with the other interns. Like, that was it. And I haven't heard that experience is very different, right? So someone had mentioned the Amazon internship experience. I think that is a real coding experience, but it's not 100% success rate. I've also had students go into that Amazon internship experience and flunk out of it because they didn't have the support that they needed to thrive. And so you just want to be intentional about it. I had another intern, I was talking to today. He just didn't have the basics in the background that some of his peers had, and so he was struggling. So he's inside the Joy of Coding Academy building that up, and it's already making more sense to him, which is awesome. So you want to make sure that, whether you get a degree or an internship or not, you just want to make sure that you're focused on learning what's going to actually help you have a thriving 20-year career, and not technology memorizing things that are going to disappear next month or next year, right? Like, you really want to have those fundamentals down, and that's what we focus on inside the Joy of Coding Academy. Great question, guys. Great question. Yeah, Katrina, absolutely. Yep. And you can totally kind of explore what your dream would be while you're here, like inside the Joy of Coding Academy, or while you're learning, right? So that you can do that. Awesome, Herb. Yeah, totally. I'm running a masterclass next week where I talk exactly how I lay it down exactly how in 6 months you can become a 6-figure software developer. If you'd like, it's a great way to introduce you to the Joy of Coding Academy way, and we can help you get started. So if anyone else is interested, I think, we've got the link in the chat. Awesome, guys. I go live for 2 hours. And we just get, I answer all the questions. I think last time I answered questions for over an hour, whatever questions you have about this, you get to actually be on Zoom, so you can unmute, you can post in the chat, right? It's super, super cool. So if you're interested, come to our 6-figure software developer masterclass, and we'll help you get rocking and rolling, whatever phase that looks like for you. Great questions, guys. So John had asked, are there more languages that are more math heavy than others? So John, languages are just a tool. I think the question is, what kind of software is math heavy? And that would be in computer graphics specifically, and some AI. It depends on how you're using the AI. When you're building the engines that are going to run the AI, that requires logic, discrete math, abstract algebra type concepts. If you're going to build a graphics engine that has to model physics, that's going to require calculus. If you're in data science, that's going to require probability and statistics. Any other coding that you do that isn't one of those things I listed requires almost no math. Basic algebra. If you've had basic algebra in K through 12 education in the US or in grade school somewhere, you've got all the math you need. Coding does not have to be math heavy. Web development, mobile development is not math heavy at all. But there are certain software systems that are math heavy. Really, coding is about communicating. And so if you've got the ability to communicate, you can learn how to be a good coder. So awesome. Great questions, guys. Great questions. So good. Yes, exactly. You're wanting to be so confident that I'm conducting the interview. Yes, when applying for the job. That's exactly where we're going to get you, man. That's exactly where we're going. I love it. Yes, that confidence will come. Awesome, John. Cool, guys. These are awesome questions. Unfortunately, it did stop rating. I guess I don't need to protect my keyboard anymore with my stuff. But yes, so if you're interested in becoming a highly paid 6-figure software developer, or just get your first software development job and you'd like support on that process, inside the Joy of Coding Academy, we train you with the basics. We give you a customized internship experience that aligns your learning activities with where you want to go. We put all the resources in your court. We have live Zoom sessions. We're now doing 7 days a week, multiple times a day. It's amazing. We have this really great Discord community that's super responsive. We put everything we can, every possible resource we can in your court to get you to that 6-figure software developer level, so that you are the 6-figure software developer before you walk into the job, because that's what helps you nail that interview, right? Imagine the confidence where you can do it already, and you've heard it, and you've been doing it, you've been showing yourself, and you're just like, yeah, I know this. I'm an asset to this company. Now you can start interviewing them. And that is a sign of a killer interview, right? Having that kind of confidence of yeah, I can do it. And to be honest, soon we are going to talk about why you should say, I don't know, on the interview. Speaking of interviews, I don't know if it's going to be next week or not, because do you guys remember that student of ours who got her first coding job making 150K. She started today. We're super excited for her, Dora. So shout out if you're seeing this. I'm going to interview her about her experience and her process of interviewing and applying for the job, so we can kind of share that with everybody. And so if she can, she's going to try and join us live next week. If she can't, we're going to record it and we'll broadcast it a different day. So either next week or an upcoming week, we're going to talk about why you actually want to be able to say, I don't know, on an interview. And we're going to be interviewing Doris, who just started today her first coding job making 150K a year. Pretty awesome. Awesome sauce, guys. Great questions. Let me make sure there's no others. One more question. Yeah. So awesome, Kathleen. Yeah. Awesome. Great. Super happy to help. And John. Yeah. So John, we can get you that link. I don't know if I see if I can get that link. If you're interested in the Joy of Coding Academy, let me get you guys that link. We do have more information on it. So let's see if I can do that. There we go. Awesome sauce. Awesome. There you go. And then one more question. Do you know a company that is fully remote, no days to report, that would give me the opportunity to move? I would love to eventually get a job and then move outside of the country. Yeah, absolutely, Julio. So I have had students get interviews for and land 100% remote positions. What I normally recommend, though, is because if you think of it, 100% remote can be some of the hardest jobs to get because you're competing on the global marketplace. So what we usually recommend is for just your first position, doing what's effectively remote. So for example, one of our senior devs, Adam, he works and lives in New York City. He's 100% remote. His company is in New York. He's in New York. He never goes into the office. He never has to go to the office. But that would be a local job, technically, because they are not going to advertise nationwide. So there's a lot of companies where there's effectively remote positions, but they require you to have like a mailing address in a specific region because they can only pay people in that region, or they really want to work with people in that region because maybe they're based out of that region, right? Maybe they have other reasons, or there might be a company party once a year. So the idea is that, what if you had an effectively remote position where you only had to go into work once a year? Well, you could really live from anywhere, right? Like you could fly there once, right? You're getting paid six figures, $6K a month after taxes. Like, okay, right? So that's usually what we recommend is we hunt for an effectively remote position where you might be able to, get that first position, and it'd be a local search, so you wouldn't be competing nationwide. But really, at the end of the day, what we really focus on is finding connections and building those, whether they're our connections or your connections, so that you can actually, get that fast track in. To be honest, all the jobs I've ever gotten, almost all of them, I've had some kind of connection to them. It just makes it so much easier. And a lot of my students do the same, right? I've had the occasional student insist on what we call the cold interview path, where you don't know anyone going in. It's got to be 10 to 100 times harder. So just contrast 2 to 3 months, 600 applications, 70 to 80 technical interviews, 24 face-to-face interviews, 1 offer, 6 months-ish, or 2 weeks, 1 application, one interview, done, offer. Like, which would you rather have? And so when you have some kind of connection to where you're going, it's a total game changer. So we really advocate for that to smooth things. And that is where being passionate about the type of software you're building can really come in, because you don't just have to know someone who knows someone. You can actually build connections based on what you know, right? But it's a matter of finding someone you can have a conversation with and showcasing that. Like, you can build connections. You don't have to have them, right? And so that's what we guide our students on, is like what connections strategically make sense, how to build that out, how to build out your LinkedIn profile, right? Like, so we work on all of these things as well. So no worries. For sure. But yeah, and you might not even have to start in person. Like, I'm talking showing up to work once or twice a year. You're still going to be able to work remotely, for sure. Does previous job history in IT boost your chances? Yeah, absolutely, John. So the student, Dora, who just got that 150K job, she doesn't have any coding experience, but she's been working, for example, in a tech adjacent role with databases specifically for like 20 years. So she's been in the tech space for a super long time, but she's never been a coder. So that's why she was able to really command at the very, very top of the range. And so anyone can access over 6-figure jobs, whether or not you'd hit like the 150, but she was interviewing for 175 full stack roles. Like, it was nuts. Like, I was so impressed. I couldn't believe it. You can absolutely target there as well. Awesome. Awesome. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. Yeah, we can absolutely work on those things. I love it. But yeah, so more tech experience can help increase your chances or translate into slightly higher salary because you already have some technical expertise. So it really depends also on the nature of the IT work and its relationship to that job, to the job that you're applying to. Awesome sauce, guys. This is great. These are great questions. I love it. Super good, super good. Yeah, I think this is all the questions I've been having so far. Awesome, guys. So good to see you. So good to see you. Keep up this awesome work, right? Like the fact that you guys are here and are showing up and are making this a priority, right? Like this is how you become that highly paid software developer is you show up and you do the work. But the only people I've ever seen fail don't do that. They don't keep showing up, and you guys are here. So you're showing up, which is awesome. I love it. So great job, guys. Thank you, John. Super glad, super grateful. And I just want to celebrate you guys showing up, making this time for yourself to come and to create awesome software and to become that highly paid software developer that you've been looking for, to have that quality of life that you'd like to have. And to really provide for yourself and your family and have work that you enjoy that is highly valued, right? Like, cause that at the end of the day, that's what we're all looking for, right? Is to have that rewarding career experience. Great job, guys. Awesome. So glad you enjoyed it. If you have any other questions, if you're watching live, definitely post them in the chat. We definitely will get back to you guys on that. And if you want any support at all on your journey to become a six-figure software developer, let us know. We've got the Joy of Coding Academy with our guaranteed internship experience, 100% job placement rate, and a money-back guarantee. We're also starting to offer some of our trainings, just the course pieces. So definitely reach out to us on that and we can get you rocking and rolling at whatever level makes sense for you. All right, guys, have an awesome day. Talk soon. Happy coding. Take care, guys.